I was sitting in my cubicle, staring at the spreadsheet that detailed every single dollar I'd ever given my sister, when Brooke burst through the lobby doors of my office building, mascara streaming down her face, screaming that I had ruined her life. Security was already moving toward her, but her voice carried across the entire floor. How could you abandon me like this? Ava, after everything I've done for you, the entire accounting department turned to stare. My boss stepped out of his office, and in that moment, with $52,800 worth of receipts spread across my desk and my sister's performance echoing through the halls, I realized I should have done this years ago. But before I tell you how satisfying it was to watch her world crumble, before I describe the family meeting where every lie she'd ever told came crashing down around her, I need you to understand something. This story isn't just about money. It's about the price we pay when we confuse enabling with love. So if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the responsible one who nobody thanks, if you've ever wondered when it's okay to finally say no, then stay with me. Hit that like button, subscribe to hear how this all ends, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever been in a situation like this, because trust me, what happens next is going to make you rethink every toxic relationship in your life. Let me take you back to where this really started. Last Thanksgiving, I pulled up to my parents' house in the wealthy suburb where they'd lived for 20 years. The kind of neighborhood where every lawn looked like it had been manicured with nail scissors. My 8-year-old Honda Civic looked pathetic next to the BMWs and Teslas lining the circular driveway. I'd made a pumpkin pie from scratch the night before, staying up until midnight to get the lattice crust just right. Because that's what I did. I tried. I always tried. My mother's house smelled like roasted turkey and $300 candles. She was in the kitchen wearing cashmere, arranging store-bought appetizers on platters that cost more than my car payment. Oh, Ava, you're early. Put that somewhere. She didn't even glance at my homemade pie. I was wearing Target. She was wearing her usual disappointment. My dad was in the living room talking golf with Uncle Tom. "There's my little numbers, girl," he said, which was his version of hello. I was 30 years old, a senior auditor at a respected firm downtown. And to him, I was still just good with spreadsheets. The boring daughter. The responsible one nobody worried about because I never caused problems. Then Brooke arrived, 40 minutes late, and my mother actually squealed. "Darling, you look stunning." Brooke swept in wearing a cream Max Mara coat worth $2,000. I knew because I'd paid for it. Well, technically I'd paid her credit card bill the month she bought it. Her Prada bag. $3,000. Also me. Her perfect honey blonde blowout. Probably another 200 at that salon. She loved. Me again. My mother embraced her like visiting royalty, while Brooke handed over her coat without a word, revealing a designer dress that cost more than I made in 2 weeks. "Sorry I'm late. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. She'd been posting Instagram stories from brunch an hour ago. Mimosas and avocado toast at some trendy spot downtown. Brunch I was paying for. Ava made pie. My dad said, remembering I existed. Brooke glanced at me with that smile that never reached her eyes. "So domestic." I wish I had time for that sort of thing. She said it like baking was beneath her. Like I was playing house while she was out conquering the world. The world she conquered with my money. Brooke called herself a consultant but hadn't had a real client in 3 years. She'd had a string of part-time jobs, each lasting maybe 2 months before she found some reason to quit. Yet somehow she maintained a lifestyle that screamed success, designer everything, luxury vacations, the best restaurants, all smoke and mirrors. All funded by her little sister who wore Target and made pies. Nobody noticed. We sat down to dinner. The whole family was there. Lauren and her fiancé, Michael and his wife, Aunt Patricia, Uncle Tom, my mother's Instagram-worthy tablescape. All fall leaves and miniature pumpkins. Probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Everyone fawned over Brooke. What was her latest project? How was her consulting business? Had she been anywhere exciting lately? She described some vague wellness consulting thing that meant nothing. My dad nodded like she just explained quantum physics. Aunt Patricia complimented her earrings. My mother beamed with pride at her successful daughter. I sat there invisible, Calculating in my head, $1,380. That's what I transferred to Brooke every month. Car payment $400. Credit card minimum $280. Gym membership on a $20. Phone bill $80. And $500 straight to her account for what she called her lifestyle maintenance fund. Every month for 5 years. Then Lauren turned to me. Ava, I need advice about my 401k. You're so good with financial planning. Finally, someone acknowledging that I actually knew what I was doing. Sure. What's your current contribution? My mother cut me off mid-sentence. Lauren. Honey. Ask Brooke. She just finished a financial planning certification. The lie was so casual. So automatic. I almost laughed. Brooke hadn't finished any certification. I knew because I'd paid for the online course she'd signed up for and never completed. Brooke leaned back, wine glass in hand. That cruel glint in her eye. Ava knows the boring technical stuff. I'm more big picture. Lifestyle management. She looked straight at me. Though honestly, Ava, for someone who's so good with money, you never seem to have any. Always in your Target dresses, driving that ancient car. Where does it all go? The table went dead silent. Michael's fork froze. Lauren's face went pale. My dad cleared his throat. I set down my wine glass. My hand was steady. I manage my money perfectly well. Brooke, how about you? How are you managing yours? Her smile went tight. Oh, Ava, do you have to be so uptight all the time? It's exhausting. She turned to perform for her audience. She's been like this since we were kids. Hoarding every penny. Never having any fun. It's honestly sad. Is it sad? I asked quietly. Or is it responsible? There's a difference between responsible and pathetic, Brooke said, and took a long sip of her wine. The wine that cost $60 a bottle? The wine my mother bought because Brooke had mentioned it was her favorite. You need to lighten up. Live a little. Stop being so worried about every dollar. Some of us have to worry about dollars. Brooke, because you choose to. You could have a life like mine if you just took some risks. Put yourself out there. But you'd rather sit in your sad little apartment doing spreadsheets. She laughed, playing to the room. You know what? I'm actually worried about you. This obsession with money isn't healthy. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, clean break. You're worried about me, I said. Yes. You clearly have some kind of scarcity mindset. Maybe you should see a therapist about it. That's rich coming from you. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I stood up. Excuse me. I need to use the bathroom. I walked calmly through the house. My mother's expensive heels clicking on the marble floor she'd insisted on installing last year. I locked the bathroom door, pulled out my phone, and looked at my banking app. There they were. 5 automatic payments scheduled for the next 2 weeks. Brooke's entire life, lined up in a neat little list. Her car lease, her credit card, her gym membership where she took Pilates with people who thought she was wealthy, her phone bill, and that $500 lifestyle maintenance payment so she could keep pretending. I did the math instantly. $1,380 times 12 months times 5 years. $82,800. No. Wait. I'd given her extra sometimes. When she'd needed her security deposit, when her car insurance was due, when she'd had that emergency dental work that wasn't covered, when she'd needed a new laptop for her consulting business that didn't exist. $82,800 was just the automatic payments. The real number was close to $95,000. I'd given my sister nearly $100,000 so she could mock me at family dinners for being poor. I opened each automatic payment. I stared at them for one long moment, thinking about every choice that had led me here. Every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. Every time I'd believed her when she said it was temporary. Every time I'd prioritized her comfort over my own dignity. Then I canceled them. One by one. Click. 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 Each cancellation felt like breaking surface after being held underwater. I deleted the recurring transfers, changed my password, blocked her Venmo access, and just for good measure, I set up alerts so I'd know immediately if she tried to request anything. When I came back to the table, I felt different. Lighter. Clearer. Like I'd been carrying weight for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. I sat down. Picked up my fork. Sorry about that. Where were we? My mother was staring at me like she sensed something had shifted. Brooke was laughing at something Uncle Tom said, completely oblivious that her entire house of cards was about to collapse. I ate my turkey, complimented my mother's cooking, asked Lauren about her wedding plans, smiled and nodded, and played the role of dutiful daughter. When dessert came around, Brooke made a show of not eating any pie. Too many carbs. I have to fit into this dress for an event next week. She patted her flat stomach. An event she'd be attending in a dress I'd paid for. I had 2 slices. They were delicious. When I left that night, I hugged my parents, gave Brooke a smile, and drove home in my ancient Honda to my sad little apartment where I'd been living like a college student for 5 years because I'd been subsidizing my sister's fake luxury life. I slept better than I had in years. Brooke, my dad said, a warning in his voice. But it was weak. And then Brooke said the thing that changed everything. She leaned forward, looked me dead in the eye, and said with a laugh, "You need to stop begging for money. Ava, it's honestly embarrassing." The room froze, because everyone there, except for my parents apparently, knew the truth. I wasn't the one begging for money. I was the one being bled dry. I excused myself to the bathroom, my hands shaking. I locked the door, leaned against the sink, and looked at myself in the mirror. My mother's expensive hand soap and designer towels mocked me. Everything in this house was expensive. Everything was for show. Just like Brooke's entire life. And I was the fool funding it. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. There they were, lined up like accusations. 5 automatic payments, all scheduled to go out in the next 2 weeks. Brooke's car payment, $400. Brooke's credit card minimum payment, $280. Brooke's gym membership, $120. Brooke's phone bill, $80. And the big one, what Brooke called her lifestyle maintenance fund, $500 that went directly into her account every month so she could keep up appearances. $1,380 a month. Every month. For 5 years, I did the math in my head. The numbers appearing instantly, like they always did. $52,800. That was what I'd given my sister. Not loaned. Given. Because she'd never paid back a single cent. Never even acknowledged that it was a loan. It had started small. A phone bill here. A car payment there. Just until I get on my feet, she'd said. Just until this consulting gig comes through. Then it was her rent. Then her credit card. Then it became a standing monthly transfer. And somewhere along the way, it had become expected. Required. My job was to work and pay my bills and pay hers too. And her job was to look successful. And when had I ever said no? When had I ever set a boundary? I'd been so desperate for my family's approval. So desperate to be seen as a good sister. That I'd let her drain me dry. I'd eaten ramen while she'd gone to brunch. I'd worn Target clearance while she'd worn Nordstrom. I'd driven my decade-old car while she'd leased a Range Rover. I looked at my phone, at those 5 scheduled payments, and something inside me snapped. I canceled them. One by one. Click, 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 click. Each cancellation felt like taking a breath after being underwater for too long. I deleted the recurring payments. I changed my banking password. And then, for good measure, I blocked Brooke's access to my Venmo. When I walked back to the dinner table, I felt different. Lighter. Clearer. I sat down, picked up my fork, and said to my mother, "I think I'll have some more of that turkey. It's really good this year." My mother looked at me strangely, like she could sense something had shifted but couldn't quite identify what. Brooke was laughing at something Uncle Tom had said, completely oblivious. She had no idea that her entire house of cards was about to collapse. I finished dinner. I had the cert. I made small talk with Lauren about her wedding plans. I smiled and nodded and played the part of the dutiful daughter and sister. And when I left that night, I didn't say anything about what I'd done. I just hugged my parents goodbye, gave Brooke a tight smile, and drove home to my apartment. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Brooke. The first few texts were confused. Hey, did something happen with your bank? I got a notification that a payment was declined. Then they became urgent. Ava, call me right now. There's something wrong with the automatic transfers. Then angry. What the hell is going on? Fix this now. And finally, panicked. Ava, please, I have bills due today. You can't do this to me. I made coffee. I made eggs. I took my time. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and called her back. What the hell? Ava, she answered immediately. Her voice shrill. What did you do? I canceled the automatic payments. I said calmly. You what? Why, you can't just do that without telling me. Actually, I can. It's my money. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. He could picture her in her expensive apartment, surrounded by things she couldn't afford. Ava, I have bills due. I need that money. So do I. But we have an arrangement. We had an arrangement where I paid your bills and you pretended to be successful. That arrangement is over. You can't be serious. You're my sister. Exactly. I'm your sister. Not your ATM. She started crying. The fake, manipulative crying that she'd perfected over the years. How can you be so cruel? I'm struggling right now. I just need a little more time. You've had 5 years. Brooke, you've had $52,800. Silence. Then, what? That's how much I've given you. I added it up. $52,800. That's not. You're exaggerating. It hasn't been that much. I have receipts. I have bank statements. I have every single transaction documented. Her crying stopped. You've been keeping track. That's psychotic. No. That's called being responsible with money. Something you might want to try. Fuck you. Ava. When you're ready to discuss a repayment plan, call me back. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt powerful in a way I'd never felt before. I'd actually done it. I'd set a boundary. The calls kept coming. By noon, my mother had called 3 times. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, I listened to her messages. Ava, sweetheart. Brooke called me very upset. She said there's been some kind of misunderstanding with your bank account. Can you please call her and sort this out? She's really struggling right now. The second message was more stern. Ava, this isn't like you. Brooke needs your help. Call your sister. The third was almost angry. Ava Mary Thompson. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you need to fix this situation with Brooke immediately. She's family. Then my dad called. Ava, your mother tells me you and Brooke are having some kind of financial disagreement. I don't know what this is about, but I think you're being a bit harsh. Your sister is going through a tough time. Can't you just help her out? You've always been so good about that. I sat there, listening to the messages, and felt years of resentment bubbling up. Not one person had asked me if I was okay. Not one person had asked about my tough times. Not one person had ever acknowledged that I might need help too. I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring. Ava, thank goodness. Now, about Brooke. Mom, I've been paying Brooke's bills for 5 years. What, no? Sweetie, Brooke has her trust fund from Grandma. What trust fund? The one Grandma set up for her. That's how she's been able to maintain her lifestyle while she builds her consulting business. I laughed. Actually laughed. Mom, Grandma never set up a trust fund. Of course she did. Brooke told us about it years ago. Call Grandma and ask her. There was a long pause. Ava, I don't understand what you're trying to say. I'm saying that Brooke has been lying to you. There is no trust fund. There is no consulting business. There's just me. Transferring her $1,380 every single month so she can pretend to be rich. My mother's voice went cold. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I have 5 years of bank statements to prove it. Why would you do that without telling us? Because Brooke asked me not to. She said it would be embarrassing. She said it was temporary. And I believed her because I wanted to be a good sister. Well, you can't just stop helping her now. She depends on that money. Mom, I've given her over $50,000. You're exaggerating. I'm really not. Even if that's true, she's your sister. Family helps family. Then why hasn't anyone ever helped me? My mother went quiet. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her in her pristine kitchen, trying to process information that didn't fit her perfect image of our family. Ava, you've never needed help. You've always been so independent, so self-sufficient. Because I had to be. Because nobody ever offered. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. None of this has been fair. And I'm done. I hung up before she could respond. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence of my apartment. The tiny one-bedroom I'd rented for 7 years because I couldn't afford anything better. Not because I didn't make decent money, but because I'd been supporting 2 households. The next week was hell. Brooke showed up at my apartment building, buzzing my intercom at all hours. I didn't let her up. She left notes on my car. She sent emails. She even tried to friend request me on social media accounts I hadn't used in years. My parents called daily. My dad tried the disappointed approach. My mother tried guilt. Neither worked. Then, exactly 1 week after Thanksgiving, Brooke showed up at my office. That's where we started this story. With her screaming performance in my lobby. Security escorted her out, but not before half the building had witnessed the spectacle. My boss called me into his office. Ava, is everything all right? That woman claimed to be your sister. She is my sister. And no, everything is not all right. But it will be. He looked at me for a long moment. Do you need to take some time off? No. I need to work. Work is the one place where I'm actually appreciated for what I do. He smiled slightly. You're one of our best auditors. Ava, don't forget that. I went back to my cubicle and found my colleague Olivia waiting for me. She was holding 2 cups of coffee. Okay. Spill. What the hell was that about? I told her everything. The whole story came pouring out. 5 years of enabling and resentment and financial abuse. Because that's what it was. Wasn't it financial abuse? Olivia listened, her eyes getting wider and wider. Holy shit, she said when I finished. $52,000. $52,800. Ava, that's insane. That's a down payment on a house. That's a new car. God, that's almost 2 years of your salary after taxes. I know. And your family is mad at you for stopping. Furious. She shook her head. I have a friend who's a private investigator. He mostly does background checks for companies, but he also does personal cases. If your sister has been lying about where her money comes from, he could probably dig up proof. You think I need proof? Ava, your family doesn't believe you. Sometimes people need to see things in black and white before they'll accept the truth. She was right. I knew she was right. So I took the investigator's card. And that afternoon, I called him. His name was David, and he sounded professional and kind. I explained the situation, and he said he'd look into it. If she's been living beyond her means, there will be a trail. Credit cards. Loans. Court records. I'll find it. 2 weeks later, I met him at a coffee shop downtown. He handed me a folder that was at least 2 inches thick. Your sister is in deep trouble, he said without preamble. Inside the folder was everything. Credit card statements showing Brooke had maxed out 4 different cards, with a combined balance of $43,700. Court documents showing she'd been sued twice by credit card companies and had settled both times. Photos from her social media showing expensive vacations to Cabo, to the Maldives, to Paris. All taken during the years when I'd been paying her bills. Receipts from luxury stores, bottles of champagne at exclusive clubs, designer handbags that cost thousands of dollars each. She's been using your money to service her debt while continuing to spend on luxuries. David explained. The minimum payments you were making on her credit cards barely covered the interest. She was free to spend on whatever she wanted because you were keeping her afloat. I stared at the photos. Brooke in a bikini on a white sand beach, holding a cocktail. Brooke at a rooftop bar. Designer dress. Perfect makeup. Brooke laughing with friends at some exclusive restaurant. All while I'd been eating meal prep from Costco and clipping coupons. There's more, David said, and pulled out another section of the folder. She told her husband that the money was coming from a family trust. I interviewed some of your extended family members. They confirmed that no such trust exists. Her husband has no idea about any of this. Ethan, Brooke's husband, he was a genuinely nice guy. A middle school teacher who coached soccer on the weekends. I'd always liked him. But we weren't close. He was quiet. A little naive, maybe. The kind of person who always saw the best in people. Including his wife. Does he know she's in debt? From what I can tell. No. He thinks they're doing fine financially. She handles all the bills, all the accounts. He just teaches and coaches and trusts her. I closed the folder. How much do I owe you? $2,000 for the full investigation. But Ava, this is worth it. This is evidence. If you ever need it for legal purposes. Or just to show your family. It's all documented. I paid him with my credit card. Another $2,000. But this time, I wasn't paying for Brooke's lifestyle. I was paying for my own peace of mind. I made copies of everything. I put the original in a safety deposit box at my bank. I kept one copy at home and one at Olivia's apartment. Just in case. And then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days before Christmas, I got a call from Ethan. His voice was shaking. Ava, I need to talk to you. It's about Brooke. Can we meet? We met at a diner near my apartment. Ethan looked terrible. Like he hadn't slept in days. He ordered coffee and didn't touch it. I found something, he said. I was looking for our insurance paperwork, and I found credit card statements. Ava, we're almost $100,000 in debt. I know. He looked up sharply. You know, not about the full amount. But I know about some of it. She told me we were fine. She told me her consulting business was doing well. She told me the money from her grandmother's trust was covering our lifestyle while she built her client base. His voice cracked. There is no trust. Is there? No. Where has the money been coming from? I took a breath. Some of it has been coming from me. I watched his face change as I explained. As I told him about the 5 years of payments, the $52,800, the canceled transfers. He put his head in his hands. I had no idea. Ava, I swear to God, I had no idea. I believe you. I thought we were doing okay. I thought her business was real. She'd come home and talk about clients and meetings. And I believed her. He looked at me with devastated eyes. What else has she been lying about? I slid the folder across the table. Everything. He spent an hour going through it. I watched him process it all. The vacations she'd taken with her friends while telling him she was at business conferences. The shopping sprees. The luxury lifestyle funded by debt and my bank account. When he finally closed the folder, he looked like a different person. Older. Harder. I need to confront her. He said, you should do it with the whole family present. Why? Because my parents don't believe me. They think I'm exaggerating. They need to see the proof. And they need to hear it from you. He nodded slowly. Will you be there? I wouldn't miss it. He organized it as a family meeting. Told everyone it was important. Told them they needed to come. My parents were confused but agreed. Brooke probably thought Ethan had planned some kind of Christmas surprise. Lauren and Michael came too. They'd been texting me throughout all of this. The only family members who actually supported me. Even Aunt Patricia showed up. We gathered at Brooke and Ethan's house 2 days after Christmas. Their apartment was beautiful. All white furniture and expensive artwork. The kind of place you'd see in a magazine. I wondered how much of it was financed by credit card debt. Brooke was nervous. I could see it in the way she kept touching her hair, adjusting her clothes. She dressed carefully. A cashmere sweater and designer jeans. Trying to look put together. But there were cracks in her facade. Her lipstick was slightly smudged. Her hands shook when she poured water. Ethan stood at the head of the room. That thick folder in his hands. My parents sat on the couch, looking confused and slightly annoyed at being summoned like this. Brooke sat in an armchair, trying to smile. What's this about? Honey, you're being so mysterious. This is about the truth, Ethan said, and his voice was hard. I'd never heard him sound like that. He opened the folder and started laying out documents on the coffee table. Bank statements, credit card bills, court records, Photos printed from social media. Over the past 5 years, Brooke has accumulated $96,500 in personal debt. My mother gasped. My father went very still. This includes $52,800 that her sister Ava paid on her behalf, and money that Brooke told me was coming from a family trust fund. He looked at Brooke. There is no trust fund. Is there? Brooke's face was white. Ethan, I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I've seen the evidence. Ava has bank records going back 5 years, showing monthly transfers to your accounts. You told me that money was from your grandmother. My father looked at my mother. Did your mother set up a trust for Brooke? My mother shook her head. Looking stunned. No. Mother's been on a fixed income for years. There's no trust. But Brooke said. My father started. Then stopped. Ethan continued, his voice getting stronger. While Ava was paying Brooke's bills, Brooke was taking luxury vacations, buying designer clothes, eating at expensive restaurants. She told me she was at business conferences. She told you she was building a consulting business. He dropped a stack of photos on the table. Here's Brooke in the Maldives. Here's Brooke in Paris. Here's Brooke at a Michelin-starred restaurant in New York. All on credit cards that are now maxed out, all while her sister ate ramen and wore Target clearance. I sat quietly, watching my family's faces as the truth sank in. Lauren's hand found mine and squeezed. Michael was shaking his head in disgust. My mother looked at Brooke. Is this true? Brooke started crying. Real tears this time. Not the manipulative ones. I just wanted you to be proud of me. By lying, Aunt Patricia's voice was sharp. By stealing from your sister, I didn't steal. She gave it to me willingly. Did I? I spoke for the first time, and everyone turned to look at me. Did I willingly give you money? Or did you manipulate me by playing on my guilt and my desire to be a good sister? Did you ever plan to pay me back? Or was I just your personal bank? Brooke looked at me, and for a moment, I saw real emotion in her eyes. Shame. Fear. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did go this far. And you never stopped it. You just kept taking and taking. And when I finally said no, you showed up at my workplace and tried to humiliate me in front of my colleagues. My father cleared his throat. Ava, we didn't know. We had no idea you were paying Brooke's bills. Because she asked me not to tell you. She said it was embarrassing. And I went along with it because I wanted to help her. Because I wanted to be the good sister. Because I spent my whole life trying to earn your approval, I looked at my parents. And when I finally stood up for myself, you took her side. You called me cruel. You called me selfish. Not once did you ask me if I was okay. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Sweetheart, It's fine, I said. And I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because you need to understand why I did what I did. Ethan picked up another document. I've created a repayment plan. We're selling Brooke's Range Rover. We're canceling our vacation next month. Brooke is going to get a full-time job, 40 hours a week minimum. And we're both going to financial counseling. Every spare dollar will go toward paying down this debt. He looked at Brooke, starting with paying back Ava. Brooke sobbed harder. I can't work retail or food service. People know me. It would be humiliating. You should have thought about that before you spent $100,000 you didn't have. Michael said coldly. My father stood up, walked over to me, and did something he hadn't done in years. He hugged me. I'm sorry. Ava, we should have seen this. We should have protected you. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I hugged him back, and something that had been tight in my chest for years finally loosened. Thank you, Dad. The meeting ended with Brooke agreeing to Ethan's plan. My parents left looking shocked. Aunt Patricia hugged me on her way out, whispering, about damn time someone stood up to her. I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed with texts from Lauren and Michael, both congratulating me. Olivia sent a gif of someone popping champagne. I sat in my apartment. My small, modest apartment that I could finally afford to make nicer. And just breathed. That was 6 months ago. A lot has changed since then. Brooke got a job as an assistant manager at a retail store. She works 40 hours a week, sometimes more. Ethan took a second job coaching at a private school on weekends. They moved to a smaller apartment, sold her car, canceled her gym membership, and her subscriptions, and her expensive habits. They go to financial counseling every week. And every month, like clockwork, I get a payment from Brooke. It started at $500. Then it went up to $600. Last month it was $650. Along with the payment comes a text. Just a few words. Payment number 6. Thank you for your patience. Or month 7. I haven't forgotten what I owe you. She doesn't try to make excuses anymore. She doesn't try to manipulate. She just pays what she can and moves forward. My relationship with my parents has changed too. My mother calls me every week now. Actually asks about my life, my job, my thoughts. She apologized. Really apologized. For the years of favoritism and blindness. My father asks for my advice on his investments. Treats me like the competent professional I am. They're trying. It's not perfect. But it's better. I've been using the money I'm no longer sending to Brooke to transform my life. I bought new furniture for my apartment. I invested in a retirement account. I'm saving for a down payment on a condo. That $1,380 a month is growing at 12% in an index fund. I did the math. If I'd been investing it all along instead of giving it to Brooke, I'd have over $60,000 right now. But I'm not dwelling on what I lost. I'm focusing on what I gained. I gained boundaries. I gained self-respect. I gained the knowledge that I don't need my family's approval to know my worth. Thanksgiving this year was different. Brooke and Ethan hosted at their small apartment. There was no expensive wine, no catered appetizers, no designer decorations. Brooke made the turkey herself, following a recipe from YouTube. The table was set with mismatched plates, the napkins were paper, and it was the best Thanksgiving I'd ever had. Brooke stood up before dinner, her hands shaking slightly as she held her glass of water. I want to say something. This year has been the hardest year of my life. I've had to face some really ugly truths about myself. I've had to accept that the life I was living was built on lies and debt and the generosity of a sister I didn't deserve. She looked at me. Ava, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to go back to how we were. But I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be honest. And I will pay you back every cent I owe you. Even if it takes me 10 years, I raised my glass. To telling the truth. Even when it hurts. Everyone echoed the toast. My father met my eyes across the table and smiled. A real smile full of pride and respect. My mother squeezed Brooke's shoulder, but then came over and hugged me too. Both my daughters. She whispered. The dinner was simple but good. We talked and laughed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible at my own family gathering. Lauren asked me about a new investment strategy. Michael wanted my opinion on his business expansion plans. My parents actually listened when I spoke. After dinner, Brooke and I ended up in the kitchen together, washing dishes. It was awkward at first. Neither of us quite sure what to say. Finally, she spoke, her hands deep in soapy water. I see you now. I don't think I ever really saw you before. I handed her a plate to rinse. What do you mean? I saw you as the responsible one. The boring one. The one who had it all figured out. I never saw you as a person who might be struggling too. I never saw you sacrificing your own life to prop up mine. I was so caught up in maintaining this image that I didn't care who I hurt along the way. She paused, staring at the suds. I especially didn't care about hurting you. Because you always just took it. You never complained. You never said no. I thought that meant you were fine. I wasn't fine. I know that now. She turned to look at me, and her eyes were clear. No manipulation. No performance. Just honesty. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know that I see you now. And I'm sorry. I nodded. Thank you for saying that. We finished the dishes in silence. But it was a different kind of silence. Not hostile. Just two sisters learning how to exist in a relationship that had been toxic and was now trying to be something healthier. Later that night, I drove home through the quiet streets. The Christmas lights already starting to appear on houses. My phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. Brooke had sent this month's payment early. $650. And a text. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I gave you every reason to, I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process what I was feeling. Relief. Cautious hope. But not quite forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And that was okay too. When I got home, I opened my journal. The leather-bound one that Olivia had given me for my birthday. I'd been writing in it regularly, documenting this journey, processing everything that had happened. I wrote about the dinner, about the conversation with Brooke, about the way my father had looked at me with actual respect in his eyes. Then I wrote something else, something I needed to remind myself of. The monthly payments from Brooke aren't just financial repayment, they're acknowledgement that my boundaries matter, that my sacrifices deserve recognition. My value was never tied to my family's approval, even though it took me 30 years to understand that boundaries aren't cruelty, they're self-respect. I closed the journal and looked around my apartment. I'd hung new curtains last month, soft gray ones that made the space feel more grown up. I'd bought a real coffee table to replace the cheap one I'd had since college. I'd invested in good sheets, the kind that felt luxurious against my skin. Small things, but they mattered. They were proof that I was choosing myself. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from my dad. Proud of you? Quito. You've always been stronger than we gave you credit for. I smiled and typed back. Thanks. Dad. That means a lot. 3 months later, I got promoted at work. Senior internal auditor. With a 20% raise. My boss called me into his office and told me I'd earned it. That my attention to detail and integrity made me invaluable to the company. I thought about how different this praise felt from anything my family had ever said to me. This was earned through competence, not through sacrifice. This was recognition for being good at something, not for being convenient. I celebrated by taking myself out to a nice dinner. Not crazy expensive, but nice. A place with cloth napkins and a wine list. I ordered the salmon and a glass of Chardonnay, and I sat there alone, perfectly content. A year ago, sitting alone at a restaurant would have made me feel pathetic. Now it felt empowering. I wasn't afraid of my own company anymore. When I got home, there was a card in my mailbox. Inside was a handwritten note from Brooke. I heard about your promotion. I'm proud of you. You deserve every good thing that comes your way. This month's payment is $700 instead of $650. I got a small raise, too. We're both moving forward. I put the card on my refrigerator. Not because we were suddenly best friends. Not because everything was forgiven. But because it represented something important. Change was possible. Growth was possible. Even broken relationships could find a new shape if both people were willing to do the work. But I also knew that our relationship would never be what it was before. How could it be? You can't unknow what I now knew about Brooke. You can't unfeel the betrayal. The years of being used. The public humiliation. What we had now was something different. Something more honest. Maybe. But also more distant. And I was learning to be okay with that. I spent the next few months focusing on myself in ways I never had before. I started going to therapy. Working through years of people-pleasing behavior and family dynamics that had taught me my worth was tied to my usefulness. My therapist helped me see patterns I'd been repeating my whole life. Not just with Brooke, but with friends, with coworkers, with everyone. You've been taught that love is something you have to earn through sacrifice. She told me one session. But real love isn't transactional. Real love doesn't keep score. Real love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. I thought about that a lot. About how I'd spent 30 years trying to earn love that should have been freely given. About how I'd confused enabling with kindness. About how I'd let guilt override my own needs again and again. I started saying no to things. Small things at first. When a coworker asked me to cover her shift for the 3rd time in a month, I said no. When my mother asked me to plan the entire family Easter dinner, I said I'd contribute, but I wouldn't organize it. When Lauren asked to borrow money for a new car, I said I'd help her create a budget, but I wouldn't loan her the cash. Each no felt like a revelation. The world didn't end. People didn't hate me. In fact, Most people respected me more. Lauren thanked me for the budgeting help and said it was more useful than a loan would have been. My coworker found someone else to cover her shift and actually apologized for asking so often. My mother successfully planned Easter dinner herself and seemed proud of it. I was learning that boundaries weren't punishment. They were protection. They were the way I showed myself that I mattered. 6 months after my promotion, I had enough saved for a down payment on a small condo. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with actual counter space. I signed the papers in April, and the day I got the keys, I sat on the floor of my empty living room and cried. Happy tears. Overwhelmed tears. Grateful tears. I'd done this. Me. Without sacrificing myself for anyone else, without waiting for permission or approval, I'd built something for myself. Brooke sent flowers when I moved in. The card said, "Congratulations on your new home. You've earned every bit of happiness you have." I put the flowers on my kitchen counter and took a photo. Not to post anywhere. Just for me. Evidence that this was real. Lauren and Michael helped me move. Olivia came too. And we ordered pizza and drank cheap wine and laughed until our sides hurt. My parents came the next day. My dad carrying a toolbox to help me hang pictures. My mom bringing groceries to stock my pantry. "We should have helped you like this years ago," my mom said quietly as she arranged things in my cabinets. "We took you for granted. You're helping now," I said. "That's what matters." By the time summer arrived, I'd fully settled into my new life. The one where I came first, where my needs mattered, where I wasn't responsible for anyone else's happiness or financial stability. I joined a book club. I started taking a pottery class on Thursday nights. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious. But it felt good to put myself out there. And every month, like clockwork, Brooke's payment arrived. We were up to $750 a month now. At this rate, she'd have me paid back in about 6 years. I'd made my peace with that timeline. This wasn't about the money anymore. Not really. It was about accountability. It was about Brooke showing, month after month, that she understood what she'd done and was committed to making it right. We saw each other at family gatherings. We were cordial. Sometimes we even laughed together at something Michael said or rolled our eyes in unison at one of Aunt Patricia's stories. But there was a distance between us that might never close. And I'd accepted that not every relationship needs to be saved. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is let it transform into something smaller. Something that doesn't ask so much of you. 1 year after that, defining Thanksgiving, I found myself back at my parents' house for the holiday. This time, I arrived in my own car. A used but reliable Honda Accord I'd bought myself. I wore a dress I actually liked. Not the cheapest thing I could find. I'd made a pie again. But this time I didn't need anyone to notice it. I'd made it because I enjoyed baking. Not because I was trying to earn approval. The house looked the same, but everything felt different. My mother greeted me at the door with a genuine hug. My father asked about my condo renovations. Brooke was already there, and she waved from the kitchen where she was helping cook. She looked different too. Still pretty, but less polished. More real. She wore jeans and a sweater from Target, her hair in a simple ponytail, and she looked happier than I'd ever seen her look in designer clothes. During dinner, Ethan announced that they'd finished paying off 2 of Brooke's credit cards. Everyone clapped. It was a small victory, but it was real progress. Brooke squeezed his hand and smiled, and I could see genuine love between them. The kind that's strengthened by surviving hard times together. After dinner, my father stood up to make a toast. "I want to say something to both of my daughters. Brooke, I'm proud of the work you're doing to turn your life around. It takes courage to face your mistakes and do the hard work of making things right." He turned to me. "And Ava, I owe you an apology. For years, we took your strength for granted. We mistook your kindness for weakness, your reliability for lack of need. You've taught us all what real integrity looks like. You've shown us that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. I'm proud of the woman you've become, and I'm sorry it took us so long to truly see you." My throat tightened. My mother was crying. Lauren was beaming at me. Michael gave me a thumbs up. And Brooke met my eyes across the table with a small, sad smile that said everything she couldn't put into words. I raised my glass. To family, the messy, complicated, imperfect kind that has to work to get it right. Everyone drank to that. Later, as I was getting ready to leave, Brooke caught me at the door. "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" We stepped outside into the cold November air. She wrapped her arms around herself, and I noticed her coat was from Old Navy. "Not Max Mara. I wanted to tell you something," she said. "I'm in therapy now. Have been for 6 months. And my therapist asked me to think about why I did what I did to you, why I felt like I needed to maintain this fake life, even at the cost of destroying our relationship." I waited. I'm not sure where this was going. "I think I was jealous of you," she continued. "You always knew who you were. You were confident in your work, comfortable in your own skin, even when you didn't have much. And I felt like I was nothing without the external validation, without people thinking I was successful and glamorous. So I built this fake life. And when it started to crumble, I took from you because it was easier than facing the truth about myself." She looked at me with clear eyes. "I don't expect that explanation to change anything between us. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did now. And I'm working on being someone who doesn't need to steal from her sister to feel worthwhile. Thank you for telling me that," I said, and I meant it. It didn't erase the past, but it mattered. Understanding mattered. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Do you think you'll ever really forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I don't know," I finally said. "Maybe forgiveness isn't the right word for what we're building. Maybe it's more like acceptance. Acceptance that what happened, happened. Acceptance that we're both different people now. Acceptance that our relationship will never be what it could have been. But maybe it can be something else. Something real." She nodded slowly. "I can live with that." "So can I." We hugged. Briefly. And then I got in my car and drove to my condo. My space. My sanctuary. The place I'd built for myself with money that was finally mine to keep. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and opened the spreadsheet I'd kept for over a year. The one that tracked Brooke's payments. She'd paid me back $12,800 so far. 40,000 to go. I updated the numbers, watched the balance decrease, and felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not because I was getting my money back, but because the system was working, the boundaries were holding, the lesson had been learned. I opened a new document and started writing. Not in my journal this time, but something else. Something I needed to articulate clearly for myself. I titled it "What I've Learned About Boundaries and Self-Worth." I wrote about how loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of their dysfunction. I wrote about how enabling isn't kindness. It's cowardice disguised as compassion. I wrote about how you teach people how to treat you. And if you don't value yourself, why should anyone else? I wrote about the cost of trying to buy love with money, with sacrifice, with endless patience. And I wrote about the greater cost of losing yourself in the process. When I finished, it was almost midnight. I saved the document, closed my laptop, and looked around my kitchen. The flowers Brooke had sent when I moved in were long gone. But I'd kept the vase. It sat on the windowsill now, holding a single sunflower I'd bought myself at the grocery store. That felt symbolic somehow. I didn't need anyone else to send me flowers anymore. I could buy my own. I made tea and stood at my window, looking out at my neighborhood. From here, I could see other condos, other lives being lived in small, glowing squares. Everyone had their own struggles, their own boundaries to set, their own worth to discover. I was just one person in a world full of people figuring it out, but I'd figured out my part. I'd learned that you can't save people who are drowning if they're going to drag you under with them. I'd learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is step back and let someone face the consequences of their choices. I'd learned that your value doesn't come from what you provide for others, but from who you are when nobody's asking anything of you. Most importantly, I'd learned that I was enough, just as I was, without the sacrifice, without the enabling, without bending myself into knots to earn love that should have been freely given. I was enough. The journey wasn't over. Brooke still had years of payments ahead of her. My relationship with my parents was still healing. I was still learning how to stand up for myself in every area of my life, but I was on the right path. For the first time in 30 years, I was choosing myself, and it felt like coming home. Sometimes kindness means knowing when to stop. You can't save someone who keeps sinking, especially when they're the ones pulling you down with them. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're the truest form of self-love. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation like mine? Have you ever given and given until there was nothing left, only to be criticized when you finally said no? Have you ever had to choose between your own well-being and someone else's expectations? Drop a comment and tell me your story. I want to hear it. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because we all need reminders that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. What boundary do you need to set in your own life?